Ordinary Joe Show. Welcome everybody to episode number 2. Can you believe it? We made it to episode number 2. I'm Joe, Ordinary Joe Zarno, whatever you want to call me, and I am just pumped to have you here on this, the second episode. So I started this podcast a couple of weeks ago with the hopes of just, I don't know, sharing my story, sharing some love and spreading kindness and inspiring people, hopefully with my story and my journey as I have gone on some adventures in the last few years, and now I'm writing a book called Ordinary Joe. So to recap last episode, I put in the description there and I talked a little bit about how this was a two-part story called the What the Fuck Moment. And I'm excited to let you guys know that today I'm going to be having a special guest on the show. Her name is Trish, and she's a good friend of mine. And we're going to be talking all things, I don't know, compassion and kindness and love and community. And it all starts off with the What the Fuck moment. And so if you haven't tuned into the last episode, I won't regurgitate the whole thing for you, but it basically starts out with a friend of mine named Leroy, who's a homeless man who I met in the fall of 2019. We became fast friends, helped him out, and in the helping, in the journey, I was doing some shopping for him to get him some new gear for the winter months because he had virtually nothing. And I went shopping at Polo Park in Winnipeg, the Mark store there, Christmas time, super busy, and met a young man who talked to me about the fact that he was also homeless. And it was a very emotional moment for both of us. And the man shared with me that his parents had been addicts and they kicked him out. They kicked him and his brother out when he was 14 and his brother was 10, and they lived in a car. And that really hit me because I realized that what we were doing with this man Leroy, how we were helping him, what had the potential to be life-changing, not only for him but for myself as well. And after I closed off that podcast, I realized that there was more to say, and so that's why I called it a two-parter story. And so the second part of this story, I think I'm going to call it the What the Fuck moment turns into a holy shit moment, or holy fuck moment, whatever you want to call it. It's a holy something anyway. And what that means is that I was friends with Leroy for 2 years. And spoiler alert for those of you who don't know the journey, we lost Leroy last November. But in those 2 years, we had some amazing moments, some real big lessons. And those are some of the lessons that I want to share with you, not only on this podcast, but in the book too, because they have been life-changing for not only myself, but for my family as well. And so what I learned with this young man, who I have to find him somehow. He worked at Polo Park at the Mark's Work Warehouse, or Mark's, whatever you call it. And December 2019, I've got to find this kid because, like looking back on it, it's a real eye opener, and it really symbolizes the journey that I was going to go on. Because to look at this kid, you would think that he just had the world by the tail, right? He was good looking, he was well dressed, well spoken, helpful, friendly, all the things. And to look at him, one would probably assume that he just had everything, that life was grand. But clearly in the courage that it took for him to share with me, his life, wasn't always a picnic. He came from, being homeless, which is huge trauma, having parents as addicts, huge trauma, and he dug himself out of that. And as the old cliche goes, you can't judge a book by the cover, and boy, is that true, right? Because we sometimes have a tendency to look at somebody and look at, judge their journey or make assumptions about who they are as a person or their journey just based on what we see at first glance. And we know that that's not necessarily the case. And the thing is with Leroy, I think people looked at him and just saw the label homelessness. And in my posts, when I shared about him, I often said, look beyond the label, because he had this label of mental illness, this label of homelessness, but he was so much more than that, right? He had this massive intelligence, this keen wit and memory like an elephant, and sharp as a tack. He was the best checker player in Canada, third best in Barbados, 12th best in the world. And people who just judged him by what they saw on the outside were missing out on this great adventure of friendship, of getting to know this really, really amazing person. And what this young man in the store taught me is that not only do you should you never judge a book by the cover, cliche as it is, but we are all connected and we all have a story. We all have trauma. We're united by our stories of mental health and trauma, the need to be loved and accepted for who we are. And I have millions of stories, probably a million, to tell you about my journey with Leroy, and meeting this young man in Marks really symbolized the journey that I was going to go on, because ever since then I started sharing the Leroy story and started meeting more and more people who shared the same thing, shared that they had been homeless, shared that they had family who had been homeless, or they had experiences with addiction or mental health issues, or they just wanted to be seen for who they were, all this stuff. And it was just amazing how sharing Leroy's story brought us all together, and united us in our need to be loved and accepted for who we are, because we all have stuff. We might have the outward appearance, but that outward appearance doesn't tell the whole story. And so coming up, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. Her name is Trish, and Trish met Leroy and jumped on the Leroy journey very early on in the story. And she has, I think, an interesting take on the whole thing. So I'm excited to talk to Trish here on the second episode of the Ordinary Joe Show. I'm pretty sure I'm famous now, and I guess Trish is going to be famous too. So coming up next is a good discussion with Trish. So stay tuned. Coming up. Hey, everybody, and we're back with the Ordinary Joe Show, my very first guest. I feel like we should have champagne or something to celebrate the very first guest on the second episode of the Ordinary Joe Show. And with me here, I have my good friend Trish, and she is a very special part of the Leroy story and the Leroy journey. I met Trish a few years ago. Trish approached me about an event that she was planning to honor her daughter, and we became fast friends. And as you guys know, when I met Leroy, I started posting about him legitimately immediately. I took a picture of his coffee and of his muffin, and I started sharing the Leroy journey right away. And when I started campaigning to see if I could raise some funds to buy him some gear for winter and for Christmas, Trish jumped on board right off the bat and said, "Yep, I'm in. Let's do this." And the first thing that you did was you secured this kick-ass black winter coat for Leroy, which really, really saved I think it saved his life, because it was so cold that winter, and it was a really, really good quality jacket. And ever since then, ever since that moment, Trish has been a really big part of not only the Leroy journey, but Leroy's life as well. And I know that he adored you right up until the very end. You're a very big, big, special part of his life. So thanks for being my very first guest, Trish.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm nervous, but excited to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been talking about the Leroy story among ourselves for 2.5 years now, almost 3 years now. And so to be sharing this journey with other people feels a little bit surreal. But I'm excited because you and I, and of course our other friend Samantha, have had some really great discussions, meaningful discussions, just about how Leroy's story has impacted our lives and what he's taught us. And now it's time to take that step out of our comfort zone and start sharing with our
Hmm.
friends and family and the rest of the world too. And I've already told the people in the introduction of this podcast that we're probably famous now. So get ready for the paparazzi. I'm pretty sure we're famous. So just to get started, Trish, maybe what I'll help you out here. And if you can tell us a little bit about, like, when you saw my posts about Leroy and posts about the journey, like, what compelled you to take that big action to get that coat for him? Like, what happened for you there?
Well, part of my journey is that I also have a special needs daughter, Emma, and so we've learned over the years that there's so many people that reach out to help us that we always want to help back. But the other part of this my story is that I had an uncle who was homeless, and people sometimes think homeless people only come from poor households or um, low income, or and they don't really understand that it's all walks of life who can end up on the street or homeless. And so I missed some of the journey with my uncle and wishing that I could have helped him more. I was quite young when he was on the street, so I wasn't able to help him, but I thought, you're reaching out. Leroy needs help, and I can start now and start maybe breaking a little bit of the stigma that comes with homelessness.
Yeah, so really you're paying it forward. You learned lessons even from having a family member who lived on the streets. You can pay those lessons forward and help somebody else, which is, you know, it's a good thing. Like it's a hard thing that you had family on the streets, but it's also good that you can take those lessons and use it to help somebody else too.
Yeah, there's a stigma that goes with homelessness. Sorry, and it people don't understand it. It comes from all walks of life, and so you couldn't help but reach out to help with your journey, and it's changed us all. Knowing Leroy.
Yeah, yeah, and you've kind of touched on a couple of things, made me think of a couple of things. The stigma for sure, right? And we've talked about that so much, and stigma is so prevalent in many areas of our life. Like we've talked about, our special needs, community, and of course I helped our Batten families, and they suffered from, people not judging their kids the way they should be, and so just to reach out and help people and see them past that label and love and respect everyone
Mm-hmm.
for the magic inside of them is
Yeah.
huge. And I think one of the first cool things that we were able to do with Leroy was Christmas Eve dinner. Do you remember that? And so I met Leroy
Yeah.
early November, and we started Christmas shopping early December, and that's when people started sending me money. Basically, you bought the coat, which was fabulous. It really helped him out, and other people started just sending money like crazy. And then on Christmas Eve, we decided that we were going to take him out for Christmas dinner, and it was you
Yeah.
and me and Dorota,
Mm-hmm.
and we took him out for
Right.
lunch because we got off work early. And what an afternoon that was, hey?
Yeah. That was the first time I met Leroy or actually knew anything about him, um, what he looked like, who he was, anything really, because I hadn't stopped to ask those questions. It didn't really matter to me. I just wanted to, you know, make sure that he was help, had some help. And so when you asked me, for sure, it was great. We learned so much about him that night, that day, that for that lunch.
That was really cool, wasn't it? Because and maybe in that afternoon, and I think that that was the case for him too, that he went from being just, somebody that we were helping to a special friend. And he was part of our club then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he became not just that person that you spoke about, but he became more real to me, right? Seeing him in person and having a lunch with them and just learning all more about him.
So what's maybe a question is, what did you notice about him, or what did he teach you from the beginning and throughout our friendship? Because after that, whenever I talked to him about you, you were Trish, the lady who bought the coat, and then you were Trish, and then of course later on you became a very big part of our journey because you helped support us in his final months as well. So what did you notice about him? How did he surprise you? What did he teach you?
Well, um, as much as he taught me um, about just his journey and just what it's like to be without, to be homeless. Um, it was he was a daily reminder to me about how precious life is and how things can change so fast from um, one day to the next, right? And kindness, and how much kindness can go, a little bit of kindness can go so far to helping people um, with their everyday journey. He was a constant reminder to me that it didn't matter um, where you went or what you did, just to have some kindness. Um, I mean, I think there's many things that he taught me, and it's just so hard to pinpoint what it was like to meet Leroy, and um, what it was like to help him Actually, he didn't. I'm not sure I helped him. He helped me more in the journey by as a daily reminder, right? Of what life is about. That's actually a hard question, Jody, because there, yeah, because there's just so much to him that, and not just him, like everybody that's that's homeless. Um, there's so much of a story, and we just learned so much about him. I learned so much about everybody around him, and in turn, it taught me more about myself.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head that what just even a simple kindness can do, right? And that's where he really benefited. And I
Hmm.
think that's why he loved you so much is because it was just all about the simple kindness and seeing him for who he was, right? And you were interested in who he was as a person, when we would get together for dinner at his place and he would tell his checkers stories, and stories about growing
Yeah,
up in Barbados. And it was interesting because even at the end when I was trying to help him outfit his place with goods, he kept on saying like I don't think he was ever interested in having like a ton of clothes or a ton of stuff for his house or anything like that. He wanted gold
no,
curtains. He needed gold curtains, but other than that, the biggest thing for him was to have you come over and have a visit, which is huge
yeah,
because so often we get caught up in the stuff, right? And it's the little
yeah. I,
kindnesses that.
yeah, I was just going to say that. So much when we were there with him, it's sort of like you blocked out the whole world because it just got simple, right? You didn't have to worry about so many of the daily life things that you get caught up in. It wasn't about that. It was about the visits and the stories, and it was almost like you a breath of fresh air just to go and visit, and you could forget all the craziness of the world and whatever. It was just a simple, basic life.
Yeah, that's really true. It kind of, in a way, it was grounding for us all, right? He really
Yeah,
benefited because for the first time in years, he had people who were genuinely interested in who he was as a person and saw him as Leroy Adams rather than Leroy the homeless person or Leroy the person with mental health issues. He was Leroy the checkers champ, Leroy the man from
hmm,
Barbados. So it was great for him, but it was good for us too because we got a taste of just the simple life and just enjoying people for their company and their stories and the value that they had inside.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
And his birthday, do you remember his birthday party?
Oh, the cheesecake.
Yeah, yeah. So I really
Yes,
love that
yes.
story. Yeah, he loved your cheesecake. So if for our listeners and our viewers, Leroy loved cheesecake, cheesecake with strawberries, and Trish made the best cheesecake. He raved about it, and he always hinted around heavily that he needed more. And so his birthday was in September. And for years when
Hmm.
I knew Leroy, he would never tell me when his birthday was because he was very paranoid about people trying to do him harm. So finally he told me when his birthday was, and he didn't want a birthday party because again, that paranoia played very heavily into it. So I said, "Well, let's not have a birthday party. Let's have Leroy Day." And okay, yeah, that would be okay. And we were going to go out for dinner, but then that's when COVID hit and things got shut down. So we had a birthday party at his suite, and I think that was the probably the only birthday party that he had had in 25 years. And we showed up
Yeah,
with strawberry cheesecake and pizza, shrimp with pizza, and presents. And we sang happy birthday to him. And something as simple like that, just a small celebration, really was life changing for him. And yeah, like just to be celebrated, I think was a huge thing. Just and like you say, it's very simple. We forget about that stuff, right?
yeah, yeah. It's just a very basic thing, right? Where that's all he wanted, right? He just wanted some people to visit with and some good some food and a roof over his head, and he was happy. He was so happy.
Yeah, he was happy that night. Like I have a video of us singing happy birthday to him and
So
he was just thrilled and I think he ate pizza like crazy, went to town and then didn't he say that he got up like at 1 or 2 in the morning and ate the rest of the cake?
yes, yeah, he ate the rest of the cheese that night. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And he, before we left, um, he grabbed me and gave me a big hug, and he whispered in my ear, he says, "That is the best night of my life. That was the best night of my life." And how cool is that, hey? And so
Yeah.
yeah, like just being able to give him back being Leroy, not the homeless man, and celebrate just simple friendships and simple recognition and celebration.
Yeah. Just that was a really fun night. Uh, to be that was I think the first time I'd learned that he really liked cheesecake too that much. And so and I have a love for cheesecake. So that was a little bit of a bonding moment, I think, for me, the cheesecake.
Yeah, and nobody made it like you. Like he loved your cheesecake. He was always hinting heavily that he needed another one. And so yeah, I know that he felt like and I've said this before, but I have to say it again that he really loved you. Like I hope that you always know how much he loved you, and he felt safe with you. Like you're a quiet soul, and you listened to him and you respected him, and I know that he knew that you were genuinely interested in what he had to say, which was huge because a lot of people weren't. And for 15 years I think he felt like he was invisible. And so I know that in Leroy's final weeks and months, you and me and Samantha, we took turns and being over there. And I think it's just such an honor for all of us that you were part of his journey too, because even though we did lose him in November, his last weeks and months were spent knowing that he was really loved, and he had somebody special in his life like you who really valued him, and he knew that you valued him.
Hmm. Well, thank you. And without someone, though, I actually owe that all to you because without someone reaching out to him that day outside your job, um, we wouldn't have we wouldn't have been able to meet Leroy. We wouldn't have had that connection with him. Um, and for you to give him that opportunity, just give him that tea and that muffin, and to see him for who he was, not just a homeless man, right? So the experience and the journey, it's not an experience, but the journey that we took, and the stories and everything else that is, very grateful and thankful to you for even including all of us in that.
Yeah, it's funny how the world works, eh? And I don't even know why. Well, I
Mhm.
felt compelled to help him that day, and I felt compelled to share. But it's funny how it works. It could have gone the other way. I could have walked past, but I didn't.
Yep.
So, but he brought us all together. You, me, and Samantha. And Dorota. Like he brought us all together.
Yep. But it just takes that one person to reach out, and you did that for him and for us, and it's you know it is certainly a life friendship and a life journey that we has changed how even I see things today.
Yeah, yeah, and it's true. I was going to ask you, like, how has your journey with Leroy impacted you even now?
Yeah. I think about him lots because sometimes when life gets so crazy, and he's just a really good reminder for a friend that just to slow things down. It's never as bad as what I think it is in that moment. Step back and go, okay, I'm I'm okay. We're healthy. We have food on our table. Take one step at a time, and it, the rest it'll come. It'll all play out, but just to be thankful for what we have. And he does. It is I drive by his old apartment some days and I think, boy, it's just like um needing to take, it's like it's like a reminder to take a breath, to just not worry so much in life.
I love that. I love that. And he would be so proud that you have that perspective now. Yeah, you've taught him, he's taught us some valuable lessons. What a great lesson just
Yeah,
to slow down, right?
yeah, yeah. And that does sound a little, when I'm saying it out loud, I'm thinking, boy, when we when I helped purchase the jacket for him, I was trying to help him. I was, in all honesty, I was really trying to help him, but in the end, he really did help us more, or help me more than I think than what I helped him. Like, sometimes I think, oh, that was really sort of selfish of me because he did help us, and he helped me so much to see a different way of life. Not a different way, but open our eyes to as a reminder, slow down.
Yeah, and I think we can all say that because I say the same thing that I said out. I thought, well, I'm doing the one that's helping. I'm helping him, but he helped me more than I could ever help him. And it's funny because uh every time I would phone him, of course, in the I would phone him without fail every day at 5:30, and every day without fail he would be like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful." And I would try to say to him, "Okay, dude, but thank you. Like you've done a lot for," and he wouldn't have any part of it. He wouldn't listen. He wouldn't listen at all. And I would try to say like, "No, you've done a lot for me," but I don't think he ever really understood um the power that he had to help other people. But on the same note, one thing that he really wanted to do was add value and help people. Like, and I honestly think, like, for our viewers or listeners who don't know the whole story, we got word in June that Leroy, we thought he was had only had a week to live at that point, and he lived almost exactly 5 months longer than anybody predicted. And I really think that creator or God or whoever you subscribe to gave him those extra 5 months, gave him that gift to be able, so he could pass knowing that he helped people and that he had a community of people who really loved and valued him. So I love that you share that, Trish, because I know that he's with us now, and I know he's so happy and proud that you have those kind of feelings, that he's done his job, his life had value.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely. I'm not sure if he realized that sometimes when he was with us, like in our conversations and with our meals and whatever. But he definitely brought so much to our lives too.
Yeah, and lifelong lessons, right? Forever lessons.
Mhm. Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm not sure it'll ever um, ever it'll not be one of those things I ever forget, right? It's a journey, and we talk about with our kids, and with even with where my youngest child goes to school, we have stories about Leroy all the time. So
Yeah, it's amazing, and I bet you there's billions of Leroy stories out there, because every now and
oh
then I'll run into somebody else who knew him when he was on the streets, and they'll say, "Well, I knew him and he was so powerful." So, yeah, there are so many Leroy lessons and Leroy stories out there that I think we'll hear every now and then, which will be super cool.
yeah, that was the cool thing. One of with all the stories that you would come back about with Leroy, and you think, oh, he actually knew likely way more people than I knew, and his life experiences were way more than what I've had too. And it's just amazing to hear the stories and the people he reached out to and the people he touched. And now we're all, and so many of us met just through him.
Yeah, it's amazing the people that he brought together, and then the people all across, Facebook world and Instagram world who have been touched even just in the sharing. So he's
Yeah.
definitely has a team Leroy, that's for sure.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So anything else that you want to share, Trish, before I talk about our little Leroy event?
Um, it's hard to really sum up the journey that you've had with Leroy or the ones that we've had with Leroy, but um, I think from talking to you from like for getting to know you and Leroy and everything. I just, it is just amazing to know that everybody out there has their own story and their own journey. And just like anybody else, whether you're on the streets or not, like Leroy, everybody has their story, and um, everybody deserves to be heard.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody does have a story, and somebody put it to me right. Even when Leroy was still alive, they messaged me and said that when they see a homeless person on the street now or somebody on the boulevards with the signs, they look at those people differently. So rather than just look and think homeless person or criminal or addict or whatever, they look
Mm-hmm.
beyond that label and see person who probably has one hell of a story and probably has lots of skills and
Mm-hmm.
talents and magic within them that nobody ever, digs deep to find. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really a very, very good point, and something that, well, I don't think we'll ever forget. So, and moving forward to continue to honor Leroy, which I'm very excited about, Trish and our other friend Samantha, we are organizing the Team Leroy Yoga Wellness Day. And if you don't know the story of Leroy, Leroy spent about a year in Misericordia Hospital while our staff and were trying to find him long-term accommodations. And one thing that really helped keep him grounded and feeling positive about the world was doing yoga. Leroy was more health conscious than any of us and more into fitness and vitamins and supplements than anybody I know. And so to honor our friend, we are going to have this wellness day. We're going to start off with a panel discussion, and we have two very cool guests lined up to talk to us about not only homelessness but mental health. And then we'll follow it up with a really great yoga session that will focus on stretching and breathing and mindfulness and all the good stuff. And then, of course, snacks after, because I don't organize any event unless I have some decent food. So, so that's
We
on
could have
Saturday.
actually cheesecake.
Yeah, exactly. We need to have cake there, that's for sure. And so Saturday, November 12th at the U of W Recplex, the community gym in there. It's from 10 till noon. And tickets are $30, and all the proceeds from this event will go to the Lighthouse Mission. It's a homeless shelter in downtown Winnipeg, and we really want to help set them up for winter and get them a bunch of good winter gear for their community. And before Leroy passed away, it was very important for him to not only help people in general, but specifically help other homeless people. He even when he lived on the streets, he would go out of his way to help others on the streets. And so we are hoping to honor him and help our other homeless community as well. So we'll post the link everywhere we can, and we hope to fill the place and do some really great things in honor of our man, Leroy Adams. So Trish, thank you for being the first person to jump on the Leroy wagon, because you really were. You were the first person who said, I've got a coat, I'm going to get a coat. And you have been really such a big, powerful part of the Leroy journey. You did so much work supporting Leroy at the end. You were a valuable friend to him and family. And I can't thank you enough. You're a lifelong friend to me, whether you like it or not. And thanks for being my first guest. And now we're famous, I guess.
Famous together. Well, thank you for having me. I'm not sure I'm that worthy of an interview, but thank you very much, and thanks for taking me along with you on all your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So great things to come. Now get your yoga pants ready. So thanks, everybody.
Well,
And yeah, follow, subscribe, buy somebody a coffee, eat cheesecake, and we'll see you for episode 3. See you later. Bye.